No, what we have found is that it's still, this giving thing, a heart issue. It's a heart issue. Now, again, I think it's a fine thing you pass a plate, but what's happening in the heart? Is this something where you see the tithe increase if there's a large elder standing over someone as the plate is passed, you know, and he gives a little longer look, waiting for a bigger denomination? No, no. What happens is, of course, whether it's a pass in the aisle or a bucket in the back, you as a pastor are wanting this thing to come from the heart. Here's the problem. The heart is attached to a head. And the head is not thinking the way the Bible teaches us to think. So what ends up happening is that most of our folks find themselves with a heart attached to their head, tipping God. And as they reach in their pocket and see whatever bill comes first, all right, here's a $5 for God today. Oh, you said you want me to tithe. Oh, here's $10 then. That one's for God. And you're thinking, I don't know that they understand this. So we, as pastors, got to help their heart by many times ministering to their head. I'll start this study by sharing some statistics, and I really hope this helps. I hope it helps you as pastors get a handle on your congregation's hurts and their holdings, their stuff and their struggles, their possessions and their problems. But in order to illustrate this to you, I'm going to have to reduce the size of the entire world's population to just 100 people. So imagine that with me. We take the entire world's population, we reduce it to just 100 people. Now, 100 people, I know how many seats are in the front, I know how many aisles back, so we're going to look at this group right here. 100 people now represent the total population on the planet. Well, who do we have here? Well, I find it interesting. We have 70 people who do not know Jesus Christ. 30 of them do. But more don't know the Lord than do know the Lord. We have 30 white people. 70 of them are some other flavor, some other color. When it comes to gender, we have 51 women. We have 49 men. And that's why some of you as pastors know there are some sisters in the fellowship that can't find a guy. They can't. They never will. There's not enough to go around. Now, it's just that's just a little extra information. You can just take note of that. Here's what else you'll find. Out of that 100 people, 80 of them live in substandard housing. Now, what does that mean? That means that they don't have either running water, electricity, or a solid roof over their head. 80 of them live in substandard housing. Listen to this. 50 of them are malnourished. 50 of them will not have 3 squares. No, 50 of them will have a meal maybe daily, but what they're getting in the way of food does not satisfy the need to be nourished. 70 of them can't read at all. One of them is dying as I speak. And that one that's dying represents a part of the population, a little kid under the age of 10 that is dying every second. Why? Because they just don't have enough food. Now, 6 of these 100 people have over half of all the world's wealth. And those 6 people live in the United States of America. Listen again. 6 people out of the 100 have over half of all of the world's wealth. Now, if you're in that 100 group and you represent the dad of the boy that's dying, you think it's reasonable for you to look across the aisle and see the one who has so much money and say, hey, is there a possibility you could help my family eat? What does this person with all the wealth do? Well, right now, if he's living in the United States of America, he's fairly preoccupied with all he's doing with all his wealth. What is he doing with all his wealth? Well, imagine with me a large dollar bill, not too hard for you to imagine. Why? This represents how America spends its money. How does America spend its money? Well, let's take a part of that dollar bill and see where 24% of it goes. 24% of it is going to be for your house. It's your comfort. It's not just your house mortgage payment. No, this is also going to service the maintenance side of how you live your life. So if you have a pool, this is, of course, going to cover the chlorine. If you've got a lawn, this is going to, of course, make sure that lawnmower is purring nicely. Now, what else are you going to do with the dollar? Watch this. 19% is going to go into the health care category. And that's your insurance payment. That's you making sure your prescriptions are paid for. You're going to spend that kind of money on NyQuil and cough drops, whatever other remedies you need. That's how you're going to spend 19% of your money. Then we come over here to your recreation and personal needs. 22% of your dollar is going to go to your pleasure. The things you really feel are important in life to do. And then watch this. We've got 15% on our stomach. House, health, stuff, stomach. Now, we still have a little left. That's 17%. That's your ride. That's what you drive. And that's not to make sure you have a good ride, but that's also to make sure that that car has insurance. Now, do we have anything left at all to give the guy whose son is dying? Well, that's the question, isn't it? Here's why. And this is sad. I'm going to turn to him and say, I think your kid's going to have to die. And the reason why? Well, this is something I'm not really sure what to do about. On the one hand, you know, if I'm a heathen and I really don't know God, I'll give 2% to something that looks like it might help your kid, but it might not. If I'm a Christian, I'll give a whopping 3% to help your kid. I'm not sure if it will, maybe. Now, does he need 2%, 3%? I think he might need a little more help. But you see, you've already obligated all of these spots on your dollar, and you've already determined that that's the way America lives. No, I'm sorry. It's worse than that. You see, so many in your church have a hard time giving even 2, 3%. And you know why? Listen to this. This wasn't enough. It's not enough for our government, and it's not enough for your people. It's some of this kind of information that caused me to scratch my head and say, wait a second. You mean to tell me that our people, I mean the people at Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale, that most of them, and I'm going to underline that most of them are actually in serious financial trouble. They're upside down in their car. They're upside down, some of them, in their life. They don't have anything that looks like a budget. They don't have any plan. Anyone who had home equity in their loan, home equity in their home, if they had any at all, in the last 2 years with all the MoneyTreeLending.com and all the DieTech.com, they took the one nest egg they had and they borrowed on their home to be able to pay off bills from the consumer debt because they didn't have enough, even in light of everything they had. So now, not only do they not have a nest egg, they're going to get to be 65, 70 years old. They're going to come to the church and say, hey, I'm really in a tough need, and I have no plan for the next 20 years of my life. And you will say, as a pastor, I have no plan for the next 20 years of this. Well, and what happens? What happens? Well, I share all these numbers and I share all this information to kind of tell you what happened in me and us and our church here at Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale. Why? Well, because once you're made aware of just a little of this information, you stop for a second and say, oh, wait, help me out again. And here's how you might write it down. 1, your church is in financial trouble. Now, if you say they're not, you don't know then that they are. And I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it's worse to actually believe that they're not when they are, or know that they are and do nothing about it. But I'm here to tell you, your church is in financial trouble. Why? There's not much difference at all between this dollar in the pocket of most Americans and the same dollar that your congregation carries. What I'm concerned about is how much this dollar looks like the dollar that's in your pocket, Pastor. So, one, again, church, your people in serious financial trouble. Two, the world has great need. You know that it costs to fund this thing called the gospel. And if you and I believe that it's the most important information we can provide, there is a need to fund the mission of the church. And at the same time, no one has any money because of the way that we've handled God's resources. Three, and this is, I think, where there's a rub in my own heart. God can't reward bad behavior. You can't expect your church to say, spending money this way, hey, God, we need more. And God, in his wisdom, oh, I didn't know you needed more. Let me just forsake all the rest of the world's needs and continue to give your church, even though financially your congregation's an embarrassment. You can't expect acceptable behavior. So, 4, Pastor, teaching on finances is your responsibility.